Our nation's founding fathers said all men were created equal, and voting laws would be determined by each state. As it turned out, the only people who could vote in this new nation were free white men who owned property. In the 1840s, women began organizing to fight for the right to vote. Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton organized the first women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York in July 1848. This launched the women's suffrage movement, which would continue for over 70 years. The term suffrage means the right to vote in political elections. By 1860, voting laws had expanded to include most white men, even those who did not own property. The fight for women's suffrage slowed during the Civil War years, but shortly after the war ended, the 14th and 15th Amendments defined all men, regardless of race, as citizens with the right to vote. Women, by definition, were still excluded, and in reality, so were people of color. Following the war, the push for women's suffrage continued. Susan B. Anthony and 15 other women were arrested in 1872 for voting illegally. Out west, some states allowed women to vote as early as the 1890s, but the same wasn't true for women on the East Coast or in the South. Various women's suffrage groups formed a united front and continued to press for equal rights. Priorities changed again in 1914 with the onset of World War I, and women found new roles supporting the nation's cause both at home and abroad. Women at home worked in factories, farms, and offices. Other women served overseas, enlisting in the military or supporting organizations. Across the nation, women answered the call of their country. Finally, in 1918, with the end of the war near, President Woodrow Wilson gave his full support to the women's suffrage movement. After serving and sacrificing so much, how could women be denied their full rights as American citizens? On August 18, 1920, the Susan B. Anthony Bill was ratified as the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, finally granting women the right to vote. Sadly, this victory was limited to white women, as their fellow citizens of color would not be fully included until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965.